How's it yangin' dudes and dudettes? My name is Sean, and hell no, Andrew Yang did not sell out. He did not sell his soul to the devil. No, he didn't. Now look, a lot of people has been saying this type of stuff. You know, it's been in my comment section. I've seen, you know, all night on Twitter, people were talking about how Andrew Yang sold us out. So even, of course, CCN, which is, you know, just a non-credible site, which, you know, just pokes fun at anybody and everybody's kind of, you know, extreme right wing, but so they try to poke fun at Andrew Yang, and so I'll skip through all that bull crap. And it says Andrew Yang sells his followers to Ted Turner because you know Ted Warner Broadcast, CNN, you know. It says seriously, that's a real tragedy for Andrew Yang's image to see his candidacy in this way. He's supposed to be different than the rest of these politicos, but he is different, and that's the thing. You know, like right here, you know, now this tweet has been since deleted. It was MAGA for Yang, and they said, this tweet up here, they said, I've lost all credibility for Andrew Yang now that he's, you know, a pundit for CNN. And my response is, so you don't want CNN to hire sane, level-headed individuals? Your need to hate overrides the goal of ending corruption? Yang joining CNN and bringing sanity is a step in that direction. Not left, not right, but forward. And that's kind of my stance on that. It's like, I myself rave against CNN and MSNBC and all these different outlets who do nothing but tout the establishment mainstream, and I call them out left and right. But here's the thing: do you want them to just stay corrupt so you can constantly keep complaining about it, or do you want them to change? Do you want them to make moves for the better? You know, it speaks more about CNN wanting Andrew Yang offering than it speaks more about Andrew Yang for joining. You know, if you bring somebody who is that sane, that level-headed, with real, tangible, I don't know how you say it, you know, like actual ideas, who's not afraid to speak their mind. You can see him with live streaming debate. He was sarcastic on so many different situations, right? And it's just he doesn't hold his gloves. And you want somebody like that to be on CNN to bring sanity to that corrupt hemisphere, right? So I could definitely see how somebody like, okay, well now he's going to be tainted and he might start, you know, touting establishment policies. Well, we'll see. And I'll hold his feet to the fire when that happens, because, you know, I'm a big fan of his, and as soon as he starts saying stuff that I, you know, tend to correct on my channel, I'll be the first one to call that out. But whenever, you know, a lot of these mainstream media outlets make good moves like this, they should be celebrated. They shouldn't be, you know, cut down for that. And my opinion on it is, like, you can't sit here and constantly be like, oh, anybody who ever goes to one of these places we think is corrupt, or, you know, has shown to be corrupt or in cahoots with the establishment, anytime they ever make a good move to maybe kind of, I guess, wash out some of that dirtiness, people be like, okay, well now that person's just obviously dirty. At what point do you say it's time to, you know, hold their feet to the fire, and if they're corrupt, we need to get people in there who's not? So, you know, it makes no sense. You know, if you want to wash out, you know, the corruption, you have to put soap in, and Yang is the soap. That's my opinion. Of course, we'll see how it goes, but, you know, you're not going to have any sort of commentary like we just seen from last night from Andrew Yang. So I'll play that video here in just a second, but yeah, CNN, a lot of these places, CCN, a lot of these outlets are starting to, you know, make Andrew Yang seem as if he's not what he was. And the thing is, he's going to be running in 2024, right? So why not make sure your face is on the TV screen every single day? It kind of makes sense. So anyway, let's go ahead and play this clip, and you tell me in the comment section below if Andrew Yang doesn't, you know, bring something new to the table, maybe even a new leaf for CNN, especially since he called out MSNBC, right? So anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, and I'll catch you guys tomorrow.
Let's bring in the power players to get a take. Gloria Borger, what's the big headline?
Bloomberg was awful. The notion, even for a Mike Bloomberg, that you can step in and go toe-to-toe on this stage with people who've been doing it, what, Andrew Yang, for a couple of years?
Yes, a couple
of years. It seems to me that that was difficult for him.
Andrew Yang, you know the field the best. You know what it's like on that stage. What was the read?
Well, I think three things happened to Mike tonight. Number one, he just found out he'd make the debate yesterday. There were 2 times when I wasn't sure if I was going to make the debate, and my team got me together to prepare. And you're really not sure if you're preparing because you're like, I'm not sure if I'm going to be in this debate. So Mike, even though he was, I'm sure, getting coached and prepared, he was like, I don't know if I'm going to be in this debate. And so I don't think he was coached hard enough. Number two, he was clearly instructed to keep his cool no matter what, but that ended up presenting as being lethargic and uninterested for a big chunk of the debate. And the third most telling thing is that if I'm his team, you know he's going to get a stop and frisk question, like a gender discrimination or mistreatment question. So you coach him and you have him give you 60, 75-second answers over and over again until he can do it in his sleep. And the fact that he did not have those answers at his fingertips lets me know categorically he was not properly prepared for this debate.
Well, they say they coached him on all of those issues. So,
and that he had extensive debate prep with real mock debates, with his aides playing all the roles of all the people.
Listen, this was a disaster for Bloomberg.
Andrew, let me come back to you. There's a difference, and you guys know this very well, between being prepped and accepting the preparation. Do you believe that Bloomberg doesn't know how to answer these questions or doesn't accept what his team wants the answers to be? There's a meaningful distinction.
There really is a distinction, Chris, and it's very apt because you can only be coached if you're willing to be coached. I mean, everyone who works for Bloomberg works for Bloomberg. So there's no one that could be like, hey, Mike, like you have to like, yeah, that was terrible. You have to do it again. We're going to videotape you and show it to you.
Did that happen with you?
Not let him. Yes, that happened to me. And then you don't let the person leave the room. And the people who are working with me worked for me too, but like they knew that I was coachable. Like if they were like, hey, Yang, like that was not great. Here, we'll show it to you. Like, let's like do it again. Then I'd be like, all right, let's do it again. And there were times I did not want to be there at all. But like in Mike's case, if he didn't want to be there, he's not going to be there. Like you know what I mean? Like there's no one on his team who can be like, that was terrible. This is going to potentially damage your campaign to a very, very high degree. And you need to not, and I know this is the case because I saw him on stage. Like if you get the obvious question and you don't pivot to this memorized script that your team has hammered into you, then you just did not get prepared or you were not willing to prepare yourself.
He did, but he wasn't ready for the follow-up.
But I have to tell you something. You have to think about it in terms of willingness versus readiness. Warren has been identified as the best political athlete on the stage. Love you, brother. But I'm saying in terms of, you know, what she can do skill for skill, toe to toe, it has not resonated.
The quote is, I don't think there's a chance of the senator beating President Trump. If he goes and is the candidate, we'll have Donald Trump for another 4 years, and we can't stand that.
Andrew, is that true?
Well, that's his argument. And there are a lot of Democrats.
You agree with the argument?
There are a lot of Democrats who are concerned that if you have Bernie at the top of the ticket, it's going to mean a very, very tough night in a lot of swing states.
Do you think it's a fair concern, or do you think it's more about what they're used to versus watching a movement in their midst?
I think it's a fair concern based upon the polling data that shows that Bernie will underperform in various swing states the Democrats highly, highly value. I want to tell a Mike Bloomberg story because we were talking about how he hasn't had all these days in the town halls and the living rooms and whatnot. Back when he was considering running, more than 12 months ago, he actually took trial trips to New Hampshire and Iowa to see if he could relate to the people. And he concluded that it was not his thing. And then he said, hey, I'm not running. And it was only, more recently that he changed his mind on that. So he's a very smart, data-driven guy. He went and got the data. And the data was not very promising at that point. And I think, unfortunately, that manifested itself tonight on the debate stage.
Back then,
Bernie versus Bloomberg. I think whatever happens tonight, what you're seeing is that there's a judgment on this party. And, frankly, one of the people I had the most hope in is you, because you had a different set of ideas. But the people should be looking in the mirror in this party to figure out what is going on here, because really we should have other choices than just these two outsiders.
We're back here with the power players. We shouldn't lose all sensitivity. Andrew, this is you watching it in a totally different way now that you joined the CNN team. What is it like for you watching it up there on stage and the feeling of what if I had been there versus being here? What's that like?
Well, certainly miss being on the debate stage on many levels. But we were talking about Mike Bloomberg's experience and how I actually anticipated he was going to have a tough night, in part because of the timing of his qualification, and then looking at his campaign schedule, where if you're campaigning, and then someone says, hey, we've set aside this time to prepare for the debate, it's actually very hard to get into debate mode. Like it's almost like another mindset. And to me, the big mistake they made, and this is going to sound, possibly controversial, but I thought they should have advised him to skip this debate. I thought they should have just said, look, I'm not on the Nevada ballot. This is going to confuse voters. We'll see you in the next one. And then some people would have given him a hard time about it, but then he would have had a genuine runway to actually try and get, frankly, prepared to have a better night. And to me, that was the missed opportunities. They should have just said, look, like I'm going to skip.
You know who agrees with you? The campaign.
Yeah,
He said, right. He just put out a statement saying about Bloomberg, he was just warming up tonight. We fully expect Mike will continue to build on tonight's performance when he appears on the stage in South Carolina next Tuesday.
Oh, that's devastating.
Yeah,
I mean,
that was the
usually your
last
inbox
paragraph.
is full of every candidate saying that they
Well,
have
it
won
does
the
start
debate.
by saying you know you're a winner
of
when
their
you're drawing
statement.
attacks from all the candidates.
Right.
But that's the most important
That's
part
very
of the
modest
statement.
spin.
That is D-spin, I think. For the first
8 debates,
They didn't.
it was kid gloves. I mean, they didn't go
Mickey
really
Mouse
well. There
Club.
were a couple of shots, but not really much.
But it goes to
It was
Van's
mostly
idea,
about
doesn't
Trump, right?
I agree with Terry that a lot of them were coached that, look, let it all hang out tonight. This
Yeah.
could be
Oh,
our
yeah.
last debate. This is existential. We're all good. You have to, and it actually showed in some of their performance. Like you could tell Elizabeth was very, very
Elizabeth-
fired up.
Elizabeth was like, tonight I settle all family business.
What is the best way to measure what the impact of a night is? And not surprisingly, Andrew Yang said, I'll tell you what's going to matter. And interestingly, Bloomberg's asset is money. You're saying that's what matters after the debate. What has to happen for someone to know that it worked for them?
Well, I thought Elizabeth Warren had a tremendous night. They announced they raised $425,000 in the first hour of the debate. But that means that she's going to raise probably $1, $2, $3, $4 million in the days after the debate. And she needs to raise 20, 30, 40 million if she's going to contend in the Super Tuesday states that have very expensive media markets. That's why Bloomberg has so much power in this race, is that he can put ads up in all these states that every other candidate is not going to be able to afford.
people don't have any money. You're shaking your head. You know this story.
I do.
And who has the money to compete other than Bernie Sanders right now and Michael Bloomberg?
That's the great question is, could Elizabeth or Joe or Amy or Pete have some kind of breakout night that led to tens of millions of dollars in donations, not just from people watching at home, but also donors who are on the sidelines right now, frankly, getting phone calls from Mike Bloomberg saying, hey, sit this one out. I got this. And if you're a donor, not donating is actually a pretty appealing pitch.
Keep your money.
I'll do it.
Wait, I'm sorry. Wait, can you just say that again? Mike Bloomberg is calling donors saying, don't give to my opponents?
Mike Bloomberg is calling donors saying, hey, just sit this one out. I've got this. I'll bankroll the whole thing. Just don't donate to anybody.
You hear this? You know this.
Yeah.
I heard this from a major donor say that
Like your donor.
yes, like a donor said that, and it's a person who donates to a number of candidates ordinarily said that these are the phone calls that Mike.
It's one of the rule changes in the game now is that when you say something, we don't just say, are you sure? We say, where did you hear it? Because on the analysis side, we got to make sure we're putting something out that we can verify. So Andrew is, of course, correct that you have to manifest your success in money. Bernie Sanders' party about billionaires should go, and obviously Mike Bloomberg giving a different perspective. Andrew, how did it play for you?
To me, it's a struggle for the soul of the Democratic Party, and it mirrors what happened to the Republican Party in the last cycle, where you had Donald Trump, the outsider, who's running roughshod over all these traditional candidates who were putting up Republican talking points, and it turned out that their ideas just weren't that powerful anymore. And this time you have Bernie, the outsider, the front runner now, poised to run the table. And the establishment's been looking around for a white knight, and Bloomberg has shown up with all of his money, all of his wealth, all of his TV ads. And to me, this was a great night for Bernie because Bernie emerges as the front runner. He's really hard to touch, Bernie. I mean, like, I've been on the debate stage with him, 7 times, and he's just like a stoic messenger. Like, it doesn't matter what you say to him. He'll just pivot right back to one of his Bernie-esque talking points. And then the minute passes.
Elizabeth Warren, that was a taste of what she did basically to everybody on that stage, once again proving that she is arguably the best political athlete that the party may have. But the question becomes, is what you just saw enough to make her money in a position where she can be competitive. Let's take it to the bigger minds. Now, Andrew, you've been giving us the practicality of this. A little bit of update in what we understand. The Bernie Sanders campaign posted the best fundraising night of any debate yet, $2.7 million, they say, from 150,000 donations. It's according to spokesperson Casca. The Elizabeth Warren campaign had its best fundraising day ever, according to a tweet from Caitlin Mitchell, Warren's chief mobilization officer. More than $1 million during the debate.
Yeah, those are really impressive sums. The question is whether she's going to get another $1 million in the hours after the debate, and then another $1 million, and then another $1 million, and then another $1 million. Because the advertising buys she would need to make in some of the big markets on Super Tuesday are really expensive, like California, Texas. I was just sharing an anecdote about how the Bloomberg campaign has just been hoovering up staff from every campaign, including mine, paying way above market rate. They're almost like a big company that's doing roll-ups or acquisitions, but the acquisitions are actually political staff. And you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if many of the candidates on the stage tonight were losing staff to Bloomberg because he's offering 150 to 200% of what the market rate is essentially at every level.
So it's not just the advertising. I think people think about him. They're talking about, he's buying up all the ads. He's buying up all the talent in the Democratic Party. I've heard that that's actually causing some problems. People trying to run for state senate and stuff like that.
It's really hurting down ballot candidates.
Can't even.
What I've heard.
But they have to want to work for him, right? Or is the money enough where they're just going to work for him just so that they get through the cycle?
If you're a political operative, I mean, you work for a lot of candidates. Yeah, really.
Wow.
Bloomberg, I think, got really wrong. He was really tone deaf on some of these questions around class, around income. Really he said, when he said, I worked really hard, and that's why I have all this money. You know what, buddy? There's a lot of people
who work really
who
hard.
are working really hard,
I mean, less than $60 billion.
who don't have all that money. When he had the little thing around, I can't possibly figure out a way to, count all my money.
At this stage, we've only had two contests. Right. They are trying to dig down to their supporters.
It's getting late early, Terry. It's getting late early.
It is late early, but hold on. It's late early for us also. So let's get in one more break here. And when we come back, we're going to have
stayed in.
Maybe Yang's going to get back in the race. Stay tuned for the answer to that question right after this.
That Cuomo money.
Yeah, you have to shoot ads. You have to make the media buy. You need some lead time. To me, a lot of the problem is that you have several moderates who are congesting the lane where Bernie is capped out at around, let's call it 25 to 30%. But then because you have Joe and Amy and Pete all in there and Mike now, you need to consolidate that group of four candidates. But then who gets out for who? Right. It's a collective action problem. And each of them has obviously a team that has zero interest in saying we're going to get out for another candidate. But if they all stay, then you can see Bernie running away with this.
Do you get out Elizabeth? Or, I mean, not Elizabeth. Do you get out Amy? Or do you get out Pete? Or do you get out Joe? Or, Bloomberg doesn't have to sit at that table. It's never going to happen, right? Never.
No, at this point, they're all equally plausible candidates.
Right.
They're also kind of equally cash strapped, right?
I'll tell you that these conversations are going to start heating up over the next 1 to 2 weeks because they're seeing the same calendar. It's almost like this wall and they're like this wave that's about to crash into it. So they're having much more serious conversations. You could tell from tonight that they were all told, look, this could be make or break for your campaign. And if you're in that mode, then honestly, I think we're going to see some of these candidates having very, very tough conversations, hopefully even with other campaigns.
You were part of that club until recently.
Yes, I was.
Do you see what Gloria just suggested? I mean, which is very logical. Ever happening? The people who are there, remaining in the congested lane that you discussed, having a meeting and saying, let's talk about.
Okay, I'll get out.
Who's going to stay in?
No, I don't see it. I know the people involved, they don't have those kinds of relationships with each other. And again, they each have a team of dozens, hundreds of people that have interests that are very much the opposite direction because they're all trying to think, hey, if my person becomes the president or VP, then, we're going to have this job, that job, that job. like this is still the hope and the dream. So it's going to be tough to get them all together. But if they don't come together in some way, then I think the timing is going to end up working out for Bernie.
Exactly what happened in 2016 with the Republican Party.
Andrew Yang, my favorite group, Tribe Called Quest, has a line. You're a box of positives. You're a big plus, love. Thank you very much for joining the team. You are value added.